Hi guys, hope everyone is well and welcome back to the Improvement Podcast. So today I'm going to touch on handling the holiday period. So it is December the 2nd while I am recording this, and with Christmas coming up, probably a lot of nights out coming up, meals coming up, I thought it would be a good idea to touch on how you can stay on track and not basically not ruin your progress, but not throw you off the rails an awful lot and help you stay somewhat in line with your goals while obviously balancing social occasions, because I appreciate they're important to a lot of people. First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to anyone who's listened to any episode, shared any episode, or subscribed anyway. You've supported the podcast at all. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I just basically reached 400 plus downloads, and I just got a message saying that I was on someone's top listened podcast for this year on a Spotify wrap up, which was really, really nice to hear. So big thank you to everyone who's listened to an episode or any way supported the podcast. Jumping into today's episode on handling the holiday period. First of all, I think something good to consider is just picking and choosing your battles when it comes to meals out, nights out. So when you, let's say during the holiday period, you've probably got more events than usual coming up. You've got Christmas dinners, you've got maybe works nights out, you've got New Year's, you've got Boxing Day, you might have other commitments, seeing other family members, going for dinner with different people in your family. So my first point is just trying to be sensible. It's like, you don't need to overindulge in every event. If you want to, go for it. But if you're someone who's wanting to try and stay somewhat on track, then you can pick and choose your battles when it comes to what events you want to maybe have quite a few drinks at, go all out with your food. But if you've, let's say, got 7 events, then maybe overindulge in 2 of them instead of the whole 7. So it's not about eating salads on all your dinners or nights out, but it's just a case of trying to be a wee bit more sensible. And again, it doesn't have to be really strict, but it's just a case, instead of getting steaming every night, just do it too. The small differences will add up over time, because you can accumulate a lot of calories from 7 nights out, whereas if you're sensible with some, then you can save others for going a bit, just letting yourself a bit more loose while still not digging yourself a really big hole and ruining your progress. Just be sensible for some, and you can be a bit more loose with yourself in others, and have a bit more, eat a bit more, or drink a bit more, whatever you're doing. And in terms of how to manage your meals out, dinners out, nights out, focus on what matters when it comes to your dinners. So what matters is spending time with your family. So making that a focus, I think, is just going to create a good relationship with food and a good mindset to have towards a holiday period, instead of thinking about just the food being the important thing. Although obviously it is enjoyable having a meal, but just having that mindset shift upon spending time with the people being the most important thing, it will help you just be sensible with your food. In terms of what else you can do if you want to manage your meals and dinners, is just be a bit more mindful of your calories throughout the rest of the week. For example, if let's say you do track your calories and you wanted to be sensible and be accurate with your food on Christmas, what you could do is you could potentially have 100 calories less on the run up till Christmas, and then on Christmas Day you can have an extra 600 calories on Christmas while having the same amount throughout the week. This probably isn't going to be ideal for performance, but we're not focusing on performance here, we're focusing on just trying to make sustainable progress. That's the view I'm coming from it with. And again, that's an extra 600 calories, which can add up to quite a lot. So that's just an example. You don't have to bank calories, but it may be a good option if you want to have a decent bit to eat on Christmas. And again, if you're thinking, why should I do this? It's Christmas, I can do what I want, then have at it. But this is just coming from a point of view if you want to try and not reverse your progress an awful lot and just balance it a bit better. What you can do as well is save calories from earlier in the day. So this goes back to what I said about picking and choosing your battles. Yes, you obviously don't want to miss out on Christmas dinner, so have the Christmas dinner, have that starter, dessert, but do you need to be snacking on selection boxes throughout the whole day? Probably not, if that makes sense. So yeah, just be kind of smart with the other half of your day, because if you think about like 3 weeks time after Christmas, you're not going to be like, oh, I wish I ate all those selection boxes on Christmas Day. What you're going to say is, I'm glad I've had that Christmas dinner. That's probably the most important thing, because like I said, it's about spending time with people important to yourself. If you want to try and not restrict yourself, but be sensible, not eat too much with your Christmas dinner, and you want to watch what you're eating, then what you could potentially do is just have plenty of vegetables with your Christmas dinner. Just pad out your meals and help fill you up slightly. And again, that would just mean you'll unconsciously like eat less calories, because you will be fuller and just not require as much food to fill you up, or as much calories to fill you up, sorry. Next up is something that I've actually been doing with just coming out of my diet, and it's helped quite a lot. Just when I'm on meals out, I've been for a few, and incorporated it into my calorie intake for the day, sorry. And it's just putting your fork down in between bites, so just sitting, letting yourself chew the food before you put the next bit in your mouth, because I think sometimes you can just you're not even thinking about eating it, you're just like cramming it in, and you're not even letting yourself time to just chill out, enjoy the food. And we know if you're trying to manage your hunger, you only get notified that you're full 20 minutes after eating. So let's say you start eating a meal and you eat it all in 10 minutes, you could be full from eating half of that, but you don't know because you've ate it so soon. So just simply letting yourself chew the food, eating it slowly, will help you be full, not require as much calories to eat. If you want to manage your calorie intake for the day and be sensible, you can also go a walk. So this is something you can incorporate with your family on Christmas Day or that. And it's just simply, getting some calories burned. You don't have to be super, you don't have to try and compensate a ton after Christmas. I don't think that's a good habit to get into, or it's that healthy. Let's say going and doing 2 hours of cardio the day after because you had a big dinner. I think that creates a unhealthy relationship with food and some sort of a binge restrict cycle. So what I recommend is just go a walk. Don't overcomplicate it. Just look at it as getting some activity in, but don't proper kill yourself doing cardio the next day after. But yeah, that can be a good way to just get some steps in, burn a few calories and make space for your dinner if that's what you want to do. And also, you could try and have water prior to your meals and after. That would just help fill you up again. Sometimes you can mistake being hungry for just being thirsty. And lastly is, yes, you don't have Christmas dinner every day, but food will always be there. Is something that helps me a lot. So if I'm out somewhere, after my diet, my hunger's still high. So let's say I eat what I want to eat for my off-plan meal, and I'm still really hungry, then I could potentially get something else and go over my calories. But I just remind myself the food will always be there. If I want to have it, I can. If I want to eat it tomorrow, it will still be there. So just because you're having that treat, if you don't have treats often or that type of food often, you can always do it next week. There's nothing stopping you. So I think sometimes when you get dinner, when you get something like that, you think, oh, eat it all. I'm only going to have this once. Screw it, I'll go all in. But you can have it next week if you want it. The food will always be there. Next up, if managing your weight is something really important to you and you really want to not reverse your progress on Christmas an awful lot and you want to be quite disciplined with yourself, then tell your family that and explain that. Like, if you explain why and like why you're doing what you're doing, let's say you feel like you are a bit overweight and you're not happy with your appearance, you just say that to your close family. Maybe just be like, I'm trying to watch what I'm eating because I'm not quite comfortable with how I'm looking now, so I'd appreciate it if you cannot try and tempt me and keep giving me more and more of that. And hopefully they will respect your decision and just be like, fair enough, and then not keep offering you more and more food if you say to them you don't want to eat a ton on that day. And moving on, hopefully I've gave you some good points on to manage your meals and dinners. Is what I'm going to talk about now is just training. So if you want to stay consistent with your training, what you could do is move your rest days to the days you can't train. So let's say your rest day isn't on Christmas, and what you could do is you could train before or train after and instead have that rest day on Christmas Day. If you want to be super consistent with your training, if you're not that bothered and you want to just miss a day of training, then go for it. It's not gonna harm you an awful lot. It's one day off. But if you want to get that session in, you want to be consistent during that period still, then it's something you could consider. And that what we should focus on here is not what is best, it's what's better. So it's not about being like consistent 365 days a year and doing everything to the T. Is about what can you do to maintain your progress, still have that balance, still enjoy the food you want to eat, still be present with the family. So yes, you will probably benefit from following your normal structure and having that rest day when you are supposed to or when it's planned, so that you're fresh for training and you perform well, but you're still gonna be able to have a productive session not having a rest day in between them, if that makes sense. And in terms of what to do after, like, so let's say you've had a big Christmas dinner, you're stuffed, you ate a decent bit, you know you went over your calories a ton, but it is one day out of the year. What you should do after that is get back on track after. Don't try and compensate a ton if you've went over your food. It's not gonna just ruin your progress for the whole year. You know what I mean? It's one day. Just like how one good day doesn't mean you're automatically shredded and you've got a six pack. One bad day doesn't mean you're automatically gonna like be really, really out of shape if you weren't before, if that makes sense. So yeah, just get back on track. If you try and compensate, then you'll probably just end up in like a cycle of, oh, be really good, and then you won't be able to stick to it. And then you'll binge or eat a big meal or go back to square one, and then you'll just go back and forth. Whereas if you do something that's sustainable, it'll be easy to stick to it. And next is not letting it milk into the days after or New Year's, like the year after or whatever. And what I mean by this is, if you do have like a day where you're not obviously following your normal food, you've ate a ton of calories, that's completely fine. But one day doesn't do a lot of damage. What does a lot of damage, is 1 week might, a couple will, definitely. So if you have like, let's say you have like Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year's, you kind of go a bit, you have quite a lot of food, you have quite a lot of drinks, they aren't the most productive days for fat loss or whatever your goal is, and obviously it's not going to work you towards your goal, but you'll be okay. So if you have more good days than bad, the overall outcome will probably be good. And the opposite applies. So just think, right, I've had that day off, I enjoyed it, let myself loose, just get back on track after. Because when folk go out and drink, when folk have those bad days, that's not what causes them to not progress. It's because it milks into the rest of the time. Because like I said, like one good day isn't going to make you lean. And the same applies. So just focus on one day at a time. Don't have an all or nothing approach in thinking, I've made like a tit of that day, I might as well just enjoy the rest of the week. Think, right, I've had that day, I've let loose, then I'll start tomorrow. Then I will get back into the swing of things. And again, don't be super strict with yourself after if you weren't before. Do what's sustainable, because we know what produces results is being consistent over time, which means you have to make sure what you're doing is sustainable. So it's just about having a better, not best mindset. So yeah, I hope these points helped. So I'll quickly recap on the take homes from this episode. So first of all, when it comes to like handling the holiday period, pick and choose your battles. You can maybe be pretty sensible at some nights out, and for others go a bit all out, if that makes sense. But do you have to for all of them? Probably not. And this applies to drinking too, not just like meals out. And in terms of how to manage meals, you could bank some calories, which means save some calories the rest of the week and have more on the day where you're going to have a meal out. And focus on what matters, spending time with your family. You can utilise some tricks to make sure you're filling yourself up, like drinking water, eating plenty of veg, eating plenty of protein. Go for a walk, eat less food before your Christmas dinner or just the day before, or that day. Just try not eat a ton when you don't need to. Like, you don't need to scran a full selection box. It's just about being sensible in some instances and then letting loose on others. As for training, you can move the rest days around if you can't train on, or if you don't want to train on Christmas Day, which is completely fine. But if you don't want to train at all and you just want to take it as an extra rest day, you're not going to ruin your progress. Do what you want, what makes you happy. In terms of what to do after, get back on track. Don't have a binge restrict cycle because it's not sustainable trying to be really strict with yourself. Try not let it milk into the rest of your weeks, the rest of the year, because that's what causes a wee bit of damage. A couple bad weeks on, like, back to back will probably reverse your progress a wee bit, but like 3 days out of 3 weeks probably won't. And just focus on one day at a time and have a better, not best mindset. So I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If anyone wants to ask me any questions regarding balancing anything when it comes to the holidays or wants any more tips, just drop me a message. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it on your socials. Help get us to 500 downloads before New Year. That would be awesome. And hope everyone has a great Christmas, but we'll speak before then.